What's up, everybody? Welcome to live stream number 2. So, the weather out here today has been kind of crazy. It rains for like 5 minutes, it doesn't rain for like 5 minutes. So, instead of doing an unboxing, I figured I'd do something a little different. A lot of people ask me all the time, what does it take to actually run a YouTube channel? What kind of content do you need? What kind of gear do you need? So, I figured what I would do is basically walk you guys through what I use and what we basically use, Bill and I, to make these videos. So the first things first, as you guys know, we have Big Red, which is basically a van that we use to go and get small units. So if we don't need a big trailer or it's a 5x5 or something, we can literally just go with the van, no big deal. When we buy large units, we use basically this trailer here, which is a 24-foot trailer. And we're in the process now of putting a little generator or something right here for power, so that while we plug it into that, we can basically, have some power inside the actual unit, so that if we find electronics or things along those lines, we're able to basically test them out right there on the spot and realize if they're trash or if it's something that we're going to keep. So I'm going to walk to the back, and what we'll do is we'll talk through the actual gear itself. Now, before I do that, something that we're doing out here, I'm at Bill's house at the moment, and what we're going to be doing is basically converting this little shed, which we might have some videos on the actual conversion of the shed, but what we're going to basically do is convert this, as you can see there's construction going on, into basically a little stream room in a little area where we can talk about all the things that we do and everything else as far as the channel itself. So, stay tuned. We'll probably have some videos kind of outline, walking through what we do and how we do it, recreating this room to be something that we're going to use for the storage business, also the restoration, because he wants to restore wood and things along those lines, like the cabinets and stuff like that. But let's get into it. So as you can see, some of the things that we basically have on here, this is basically at a high level our gear. So this is what we basically use when we go to a storage unit to be able to identify and basically be able to do all the things that we need to do content-wise to record and to do the things that we do. So the iPad itself is just a regular iPad Pro. That's something that we basically use for, we used it last time on the stream, but we use it mostly to, get content or things along those lines when we have to do live streams. It makes it a little bit easier. We also use a phone, like most people, what we're streaming on right now. So those two things are pretty standard, most people have. So let's start off here. So the first thing that we have is basically a 4K video camera. The camera itself, if I take it out, basically looks like this. And what we use this camera for is if we have certain videos or shoots where we basically want to, say there's a product and we want to, get a good angle of the product, or if we want to do a film or a shoot with a little bit more controlled, we basically would use something like this. So this is mostly for, products, or if we're doing like sitting down and talking, things along those lines. It's a little bit more uniform and a little bit easier to manage and maintain. So as far as the video recordings, we have the GoPros. We have 2 GoPro 9s and a GoPro 10. And those are going to basically be what we use. A lot of the times I'll wear one right here on my chest. And what I do is I basically have a chest harness. And then I also have the magnetic, which you'll see right here. And so the magnetic you basically wear under your shirt. And this one basically goes over. As you've seen in some of my videos, I basically call that a man bra, because it basically wraps all the way around you. It tucks in your shirt and stuff like that. So it's a little bit uncomfortable, but the quality of how it stays in place is a lot better. So it just really depends on what works for you, what doesn't work for you. As far as the cameras, we basically run 256 gigabyte or 256 gig micro SD cards on all 3 of them. And What we generally tend to do is we basically set all three to run at the same time simultaneously, so that when we get the content back, we're able to basically match the content based on audio on all three tracks and be able to switch between the views of what you're seeing. So I'll probably do another video later that shows you how to do that. If anybody out there is interested, just mention it on the actual chat and or on the comments, and I'll basically give for that. As far as microphones, when you're doing these channels, the audio is probably the most important part to these streams or these videos or so forth. So the first thing we run is these wireless Rode. And what happens is you have this first one here, which is the master, and this one connects right to the GoPro or the camera or the phone or something along those lines. The next thing we run is this one, which is the actual microphone, and you can see the microphone right here. And so this goes on your physical body. So you would put this basically here, or you can put it here, or if you have like a different type of shirt, you can put it here. So it just really depends. But this is what actually picks up the audio and transmits it to this one and then transmits it into the camera. So it makes it a little bit easier and people can actually hear what you're saying. Some other things that we have here, we have this, which we use if we put like on the window of the car and we're basically wanting to talk to the camera. So if we're driving, for safety reasons a lot of the times, but a lot of the times also so the camera is steady and it's basically a single point of sight. You have the GoPro selfie stick. We use that basically when we're opening the doors to the storage units, and we, you want to hold it in place so that you can roll the window or the door up and be able to, record and so forth. As far as another mic, we have this one here, which is a Movo, and this particular mic has the dead cat on it, and this right here would connect to your tripod or your camera. It could go, right here on the camera, or it can go on the on the iPad, or it can go on the GoPro. It just really depends. But that's basically a shotgun mic. And so it's going to have a single direct line of microphone and basically avoid everything around it. So a couple of different things. We've got a whole bunch of batteries. We usually run on a single shoot. We'll basically use pretty much every single battery. While we're on site, we run these things, which are basically chargers for the batteries. And we basically, get the batteries to keep recharging so that they're always available. Some other things that we have is different types of lenses. So let me open this up. So in here, we've got different lenses that we use on the actual GoPros. So if you want to do like wide angle or fish cat angle or, different types of views to be able to get the content in a different manner. So the idea is we have everything in a case and we take everything with us. So when we're doing the on-site shoots, depending on the type of content that we're trying to get or the angles or that type of thing, we basically will switch the cams, we'll switch the lenses, and we'll, do the shots 2, 3, 4 times to be able to get the right shot that we're going to be able to use for editing later. In addition to that, we run basically portable batteries. We've got a handful of them, as you can see right here. And these are going to be just to kind of recharge some of these things, like, the small ones, if you want just a quick charge or something along those lines. The other thing that we have is basically a little hotspot that we use. Basically, a lot of these storage units don't have good reception. And so by having that hotspot, we're able to do some things online or do some lookups or, look up to see what a particular item is worth or things along those lines. And it speeds up our process. Okay. Now, some other things that we use a regular tripod. On this particular tripod, what we do is using this, we're able to put this right to the tripod, and then these are magnetic. And so you can put one to a camera, one to here, one to your chest. And so you're able to snap the camera off easily and be able to, for the lack of a better word, move from the tripod to your chest to this selfie stick, basically very seamlessly and very easily. We also have 2 of these. One sits on a really tall tripod, one sits on a small tripod. And so depending on what we're trying to get to or what we're trying to see within the actual film, we basically would use these to light up the area that we're in. Next, we have one of these, these are pretty good. They're kind of hard to use, but if you put your phone on here, whenever you're moving around, it'll stabilize the shoot. And so you're able to basically get better camera angles without it being shaky and things along those lines. So, that's just a personal preference one. I've used it a handful of times, mostly on like stock films where I'm, trying to get that nice wide angle that looks really clean and stuff like that. So now on the storage side of things, you're going to need locks. There's two types of locks that storage units use. These are the newer locks that go into the actual little, it goes into like a little slot in the door. And these are the older style locks that you can basically use. In addition, you can get one of these. So when you go to the units that look like this, you can actually slide this into the door and then use this one in the new unit formats. Lastly, two more things. This right here is basically just a little battery that we basically have. And this right here basically gives us power on site. So once we put the generator on the trailer, we'll have a little more power. But for the time being, we're using basically this. And this is going to be basically our power station. It's a 300 watt amp power station. So it basically can power and recharge most of these electronics for a pretty long time. I think you get like 50 or 60 charges to a phone. You get, different charges for these types of things. You probably get like, a couple hundred before the battery's dead. So it's always nice to have because it gives us the ability to charge things without having to have the vehicles running or things along those lines. We also use that battery to power this, which is a little cooler that we use. And this cooler right here is basically one of the types that you plug in, and it's got the two slots. You can put basically cold drinks on one side, and then if you want to do like sandwich stuff while you're out there, you've got your little cutting board. So it basically gives you the ability to take your food so that you don't have to leave the storage unit. You can do all of your shooting and everything on site and basically be done with it. So at a high level, I kind of wanted to go through the gear because a lot of people tend to ask me all the time, how much do you use or what kind of gear do you use, and that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here and it takes a lot of different gear to do a lot of different things within the shoots. In some cases, if you're starting out, just using a phone or using an iPad or something along those lines is more than sufficient. The only reason that I use multiple elements in gear is that when you're doing storage units, you need different angles of views. You need to be able to see me as I'm talking about the actual item or that particular area. You need to be able to see inside the box as I'm going through. So you can have one GoPro that basically faces you on a tripod, and then you can have another GoPro that would sit on your chest, and then here it'll basically, so as you're talking and you're moving, you have two different shots of angles. So ultimately, it's just what works for you. Most people who start out with YouTube, they'll start out with one camera. They'll definitely get great content. But then as they start to grow and they start to see some of the shortcomings because I can't see this and all you see is a box and you can't see me interacting, it basically leads to I need another camera or I need lighting or I need this. Now, the three key elements when you're making any YouTube video is going to be a really good camera, really good lighting, but the most important is really good audio. Without those three, your videos are going to look as professional or they're going to be harder to be seen or heard. And so, there's a lot of different ways to achieve that. But at the end of the day, it just boils down to what works for you. So once again, just in recapping, this is my setup. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the correct setup or the best setup out there. It just means that this is what works for me. This is the bare minimum items that I need to be able to record and do these shows as best as I can. Now with the GoPros, the audio and the management in these are kind of bad. So one of the other things that we have on here is two of these, which are the media packs. And what they have is a built-in microphone. They also have the ability within these to, snap in an external mic, to do charging right on the spot. So they come in really, really handy. Otherwise, you have to keep opening these up and going into the actual unit and, taking these little doors out. So it just really boils down to, and I'm struggling to get this door out, but you see, it really boils down to, do you want to be doing this the whole entire time, or do you want to just, you know, throw one of these on there and you have access to all the ports and everything that you need? But that's pretty much it. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. I monitor the comments all day long. I'll definitely respond. I pretty much respond to every comment out there, and I will basically, help you out if you have questions as to what works for you, or what I have found to be the best battery pack, or the best camera, or the best angles, things that I've been kind of learning. I've only been doing this channel for less than a year at this point, but I have a lot of experience prior to this in technology and in graphics and stuff like that. So I'm trying to apply the things that I know into the channel. And so if it can help you out, let me know. I'll do my best. But that's pretty much it. If you, we'll have another live feed on Thursday. Like I said, I didn't want to miss the live feed because of the weather. So I figured that this would be a good kind of intermediate until Thursday. Hopefully it doesn't rain. But that's pretty much it. Appreciate you watching. If you're new here, click that subscribe, click that bell. We'd appreciate it. If you're not new and you've come back again, it's good to see you. Well, that's pretty much it. We'll see you soon.